Hello again, my name's Diane and I design and make patchwork quilts, and I've called this one the Mermaid quilt. It's a child's quilt. It's 40 inches wide, 61 inches long, perfect for a single bed. And if you'd like to see how I made this one, please continue watching. So I'm still on my quest to use all of the children's fabric that I have in my stash, and if you'd like to have a look at the fabric, you'll see how this one came together. So I have been collecting little bits and pieces of underwater fabric seams for a child's quilt, and this is the star of the show, these two lovely little mermaids. And I've recently discovered there's a thing called mermaid core. Don't know if it's a real thing or an Etsy thing, but anyway, there is. So I have this fabric, all things nautical, and I've decided today that I'm going to put it all together. So this is the fabric I've been saving, and I'll show you the fabric I've taken from my stash. So these deeper blues I thought perhaps might make the water, and then the paler blues will be a sky, and I've also got a couple of little hot air balloons and some little birds flying, so I thought they might go into the sky. Then this orange and gold and the dotty, I thought I might make some fish. And then this will be a sail. I thought I'd put a boat on top of the ocean, so I'd have a sail with a red flag, and have some seaweed and some ocean floor. So that's the fabric I'm going to be working with. Okay, let me show you what I've done so far. I'm thinking of working in 3-inch squares or multiples of 3-inch squares. And so with the feature fabric, I wanted to keep it as large as possible to retain all the characteristics. So I've got some 5.5-inch squares. We've got some 8-inch with the gorgeous little mermaids. And the largest piece I have is this one, which is 10.5-inch. So this is the underwater scene, and I'm going to build around that. I'm going to put a surface with a boat and a sky. And this is my rough little plan. So these are the big feature fabric squares, and then around that there's some smaller pieces of the feature fabric that I managed to cut into 3-inch squares, and then I'm going to put some fish and some seaweed. Then there'll be a surface with waves, a boat with sails, and I've got some hot air fabric, hot air balloon fabric that I'm going to put in the sky, and a sun. Well, after looking at my plan, I decided that I would start with above the waves. And as you can see, there's a lovely little girl standing on the deck. I think she must be a fairy. She has wings and she's talking to a rabbit. So I'll show you what I've been doing. So we have a beautiful sunshine glowing, and we've got these hot air balloons in star clouds floating around. And then I decided to use 2 fabrics for the hull of the boat. I really didn't want anything too dominant on the quilt, so I decided to go with the dark brown at the bottom and the paler brown on the top. And then you can see the triangular waves. So I think that looks really, really pretty. And so it's the next day, and I've just looked at this quilt again with fresh eyes, and I've decided that this beautiful white fluffy cloud with all these little cloud shapes on is just a little bit too plain in the sky. Even though it's got this lovely little star, I think it looks better like this. And now I've thought that, I can't unthink that, and so I'm going to unpick that, and I'm going to put that little hot air balloon right in the middle. And there you are, it's popped back into place, and no one in the world will know that it wasn't there in the first place. It was worth the effort, I think. It looks much prettier. Okay, let's get on to the sea now. So this is the underwater plan, and you can see these are where the big squares are, and these little ones with the markings on are the feature fabric, and I've made 5 little fish. I'll show you those in a minute. There's just 2 of these basic fish shapes. These ones haven't got fins. I did sew a little daisy eye on them because they're quite plain, the fabric. And then I have 2 of these more brightly coloured orange floral with the yellow fins and tails. And then the one left is this little fish And I'm just looking at that and thinking I might put a little fin on the bottom. So there we are, that's the 5th fish with a bit of feature fabric. Sounds like a tongue twister. Say that fast 5 times. But I think the best way to start piecing it is if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares across, then that incorporates all of that seaweed and the big pieces, the blocks, the big pieces of fabric. I'm not going to do the bottom row yet because I'm not quite decided how I want that to look. So that's the layout, and I've tried to put next to the feature fabric some of the half square triangles just to break up the squareness of the overall look. And that's what that first piece looks like. I really like the look of this blue because it's a mottled fabric. It looks like there's movement in the water. Really pleased with that. It's almost like a little I Spy quilt with all the little creatures. You can imagine sitting with a little girl or a boy and finding all the different pieces. Fish are standing out nicely. Okay, let's move on to the next one. And on the next section I have the lovely little mermaids. There's a fish, there's some squid, and I'm going to leave off this bottom row. So it's 4 blocks across and 9 blocks up, and I'll show you what the fabric looks like. So we have a fish and the mermaids, and there's a block of the squid fabric, and then we have a ribbon of seaweed. Now I've joined those two together and the underwater kingdom is really taking shape. They look beautiful. Love the little mermaids. So now there's just one section here on the side. I'll show you that, and then I'll be piecing the top and bottom together. This is the last piece. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks across, 9 down. There's a huge piece of the octopus fabric and some squid, and there's some fish, and then there's a little row of seaweed down the side. So I'll put that together. We'll have a look and see what that looks like. And that will be the placement of that fabric. Well, I was feeling really positive about this quilt until I've just looked now with fresh eyes, and this bottom corner here is just completely dominating the whole of the quilt. So I'm going to unpick from there to the end and reconfigure that. And I'll get back to you again. And there she is. I am much happier now with that bottom. So I've put these little triangles, so perhaps it's the ripply sand on the bottom of the ocean, and then I've just put an orange band to emphasize the sand. And I'm going to put, if I've got enough of the blue fabric, the teal, I want to put a border around the sides and the top. But yes, a lot of unpicking on this one, but I'm pleased that I did it because I'm happy now. And there we are. So it's a solid teal, very soft. I pre-washed it because of the colour, so I didn't want any accidents in the wash. And it's simply quilted with a cross hatch, and that's it. All finished now. I'll show you the front. And that's the front of it now, completely finished. I think there could be hours and hours of storytelling in this quilt. Adventures in hot air balloons, fairies on boats, the underwater seascape. So now I'm going to take some photos and pop it in my shop and find it a new home. If you've enjoyed watching this video, please come again. Take care of yourselves. Bye.